Thank you all for joining the Office of New Student Orientation's webinar, How to Register for New Student Orientation. We'll begin in just a couple of minutes as folks continue to log on, so please stand by and we'll start here promptly. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first webinar of the semester. My name is Noah Sheridan. I use he, him pronouns, and I have the pleasure of serving as a graduate assistant for communication and special projects in the Office of New Student Orientation. The Office of New Student Orientation is excited that you all have joined us on this Monday afternoon, morning, evening, depending upon wherever you're tuning in from around the world, to discuss how to register for your new student orientation session. In this webinar, we aim to answer any questions you have pertaining to the registration process for orientation this summer. But before we get started with questions, we do have two amazing staff members on the call with us, and I'm going to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves now.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jared Logan. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I have the honor of serving as the Assistant Director for Orientation Logistics here in the Office of New Student Orientation. What does that mean? I'm responsible for think the who, the what, the when, the where of the program. So where we're having programming, how we get there, who you're hearing from, think presenters, breakout sessions, and just the overall really skeleton of the program as we prepare for you all to arrive.
Awesome. Hey guys, my name is David Flowers. I just go by my last name Flowers around campus. It's a lot more fun anyway. I serve as the office manager for New Student Orientation. I've been with our office since 2017. With every year, it just gets more and more exciting to keep welcoming new generations of Gamecocks. So we're welcome to have you guys and your students. Me and my role, I oversee, or I help to oversee registration for our students and supporters. Among other very administrative needs. If you ever call our front desk and talk with one of our student assistants, I help oversee that staff. Any email communications you might get from us comes from our front desk as well. So welcome to the webinar. We hope we get some registration questions answered for you guys today.
Now, it is truly so great to have each of you with us, and we're glad to be able to connect with you and answer your questions. Now, to ask questions, there should be a green interact button on the top right-hand side of your screen. So in order to be able to ask questions to our panelists, go ahead and click that green interact button, type questions as it will give you a text box, and then click submit, and then that will give it to our panelists to be able to ask questions. Now, I will say, in addition to Jared and Flowers, we do have two incredible staff members on the backstage as well, and Jennifer and Allison, and they are also answering questions. So your questions will either receive an answer via our panelists, and we'll answer it live here, or via our live chat. So your questions will be answered today. But again, remember to use that green interact button to ask questions. But before we turn it over to our audience questions, I do have a couple of prepared questions just to start the conversation. And Jared, I will start with you. What is New Student Orientation? We're hearing all these different things. There's lots of different pieces that we're getting communication about. What is New Student Orientation?
Yeah, great question. So I just envision orientation as this very magical experience, and it is. But New Student Orientation here at the University of South Carolina is truly your premier transition program. So think we will have students and family members as you join us here on campus. We're going to talk about resources here, how you're able to get involved, what it means to be a Gamecock, how do we build community, as well as, of course, getting some academic advising resources shared with you all and getting that initial class schedule created for our incoming students. Orientation looks different depending on different student types. For our freshman orientation, that is traditionally our 2-day orientation model, while our transfer orientation is traditionally our 1-day model.
Awesome, thank you. It sounds like a great program. We're very excited for it this summer, but my next question for you, Jared, is when does registration open and close for New Student Orientation this summer?
love this question. So registration actually opens this Wednesday. So that is March 20th at noon. So 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for my folks that may not be in Eastern Standard Time. So it does open again this Wednesday, March 20th, and then it will close on May 10th. So you want to make sure that you get registered between this Wednesday, March 20th, and that May 10th deadline.
March 20th at noon. In my notes already, definitely excited to register for orientation. Now, Flowers, I'm going to go to you for my next question. How do I register for my orientation session?
It's a great question. So to register for an orientation session, your student or yourself will need to sign into the student's Self-Service Carolina account. You've probably signed into that registration platform before. It is where basically everything that the student is going to need to do and have throughout their time at USC is going to be housed. And that is at my.sc.edu. So my.sc.edu. And once your student signs in there, we do urge that your student complete registration. Obviously, you are more than welcome to do it alongside with them, but they will sign into their Self-Service Carolina account at my.sc.edu. They'll select the admissions tab and then orientation services. And that's going to link them. It's going to ask them to select a campus. Obviously, you'll select Columbia. And that's going to link them over to our task list. And that task list is just a very all-encompassing to-do list for everything that needs to be done before you attend orientation. Not necessarily before you move in and not necessarily before classes start. There's going to be some overlap on those task list items, but everything that needs to be done before orientation will be on that task list. The first item on that list is complete your orientation reservation. So your student will click on that, and then they'll walk through the registration from there. Be sure that they're paying attention as they're going through, and they're taking a lot of care to read thoroughly through every question that's prompted in the registration. Advisors may pull some of that information. We may pull some of that information as well. So as long as everything in there is nice and accurate. And the last step of the registration is to pay. Now, a big caveat here, your registration is not done until payment has been submitted and processed. So if you decide to finish out the reservation, you get to the payment portion and you want to come back later at a later time of the day or at a later date. One big thing, we cannot guarantee that that session you're initially trying to register for will be available at a later date. So we do recommend that just knocking it all out in one go when you do register, pay at the end. And once you've received a confirmation email, that means that your payment has been submitted and that your spot is reserved. So yeah, it'll be in Self-Service Carolina. It will open this Wednesday at noon. You'll click admissions and then orientation services, and just make sure you finish everything out and you submit payment and you receive that confirmation email and you are good to go.
Thank you. Flowers, I'll stick with you for my next question. Jared just got finished saying that our registration opens this Wednesday at noon. But what if I'm not able to log on at noon? Say I'm working at that time, I'm a student, I currently have class at that time. Is it okay if I'm not able to log on at noon Eastern time?
Yes, absolutely. So the registration, again, will open at noon, but obviously we are aware some people might be at work, some students might still be in school. That is why we keep it open until May 10th. So you got about a little less than a 2-month period to go in and register for an orientation session. What I will say, just in the interest of full disclosure, if you're interested in a very early session in the summer, those traditionally do fill semi-quickly. I'm not saying that they fill at noon and close on 12:01, but they do fill quite quickly. Those are usually the most in-demand sessions. So if you're interested in getting into one of those earlier dates, I'm not saying that they're going to fill up, but they just traditionally do. So you may want to get in there as soon as possible, on or after 12 on Wednesday. We can't guarantee that those sessions are going to be available the next day or even later that evening. That's the only caveat there if you're interested in one of the very, very early sessions. And people traditionally want to get into the early sessions because they believe that they're not going to get a class schedule unless they do, which is not the case. Our students walk away from orientation with a functioning schedule of everything that they'll need for their first semester, regardless of when they attend orientation, even if they attend the last session of the summer. So that's a common, anxiety or worry about trying to get into one of those early sessions, which we totally understand. But yeah, you can sign up until May 10th. So if you want to wait till the weekend and go in there, by all means, you're welcome to do so. Just that one caveat with our very, very early on sessions, the first couple ones, they do fill up traditionally quite quickly.
Perfect. And so it's a great note to have that our registration opens March 20th at noon Eastern time, but you don't have to be there exactly at noon, but our times do fill up quickly. And speaking of some of our sessions filling up, Jared, I'm going to go to you for my last question before we turn it over to the audience. Say I found the session that I really want, but as I'm trying to register for it, it says that it's at capacity or full. What do I do with the session that I want is at capacity or full?
Great question. So similar to what Flowers was saying, sessions do fill up, and that is something that's going to happen. I mean, that can depend on folks are thinking about vacations or they have other plans for later in the summer. So if you do go in and you have a session that you would want and it's full or at capacity, we're going to really invite you to look at the next available date for orientation. There is no perfect date for orientation. It really is just what fits best for you and you as a student, as well as you as a family and family members. We do our sessions based on a lot of variables that can include your academic college, the major. So we really recommend that you go in and look at the other dates, see which one, the next one that is available. I will say we do have some specific programs, and I know we may have some questions about certain like student types and like honor students. Those do have specialized sessions that they will need to attend, but there are a multitude of those for folks to pick from. But if you do have questions, after you've already looked and seen which one is available, feel free to reach out to our office. We're happy to chat with you, but really encourage you to look at the other available dates first. And if that one date is really hard and you're stuck with it, feel free to reach out to our office. We can workshop and work with you through that.
Yes, perfect. All right, we're now going to transition to your questions in our audience. Just a quick reminder that in order to ask questions, there's a green interact button on the top right-hand side of your screen. Just click that button and you'll be able to submit your questions both to our panelists as well as our live chat moderators that are backstage. But I'm going to ask this first question. It feels very similar to the one that goes right in hand with the one that we just asked. But Jared, how quickly do sessions fill up?
That is a great question. And I love this answer, but also it's kind of rough. It depends. So it very much does depend on a student's major, what program they're part of. So if they're in the honors program, we do have select honors South Carolina Honors College sessions that we put on during the summer. So it really depends, again, on your major. But what we do recommend is as soon as you know a date that works best for you, and you can check our dates if you go online. If you type in sc.edu/orientation, it'll take you to our website and you can see a list of our dates. And you can go ahead and start seeing what those look like. But if you know a date, go in as soon as you're able to and go ahead and register for that. Students are the ones that are doing the registration, as Flowers mentioned. So if you go in, students, and you are registering for a session, go ahead and register for the dates you want, and we can add guests later, but you want to make sure if there's a date that you want to put yourself in that session as soon as you're able to do so.
Perfect. All right, we have many different special population programs, but a couple members in our audience I'm seeing want to know about our honors program, and do honors students attend orientation through our office?
They do. So I kind of missed that in my last answer. So yes, we do have an honors program. And what makes it a little different than what we'd say our general incoming freshman student is that there are two specific meetings that our honors students attend and one specific one that families will need to attend. So on day one of our 2-day program for honors students, you all will have a morning meeting with the South Carolina Honors College program and their staff the morning of the start of this first session. We'll send more information about where that location will be, and you will hear from the Honors College directly about what that is. But in there, it's very much a meet and greet. It gives you an opportunity to meet the staff and to chat with other students and other family members who are part of the Honors College. On day 2 for our students, you will go and meet with the Honors College before you go to your academic advising appointment. So that gives you a chance for them to talk about the program, things you need to know before you're going to go select your classes. Family members are able to attend the morning meeting with students on day one, but not the actual advising appointment for honor students. But family members, do not worry. During lunch on day two, we do have an honors family session where you yourself will get to sit down with the some of the staff members from the South Carolina Honors Program, or Honors College, excuse me, during your lunchtime, and you can chat with them as well. So we've not forgotten you all. Both students and families will have 2 opportunities to meet with the Honors College during their session. But again, those sessions are specified, and if you were already accepted into the Honors College, you will only see those sessions that are available to you.
This is definitely highlighted in that answer when we're talking about our honors experience. But many questions that I'm seeing here talk about the family and supporter experience at New Student Orientation this summer. So I'm curious to both of y'all. Do family members and supporters attend New Student Orientation, and what does that look like when they attend this summer?
So yes, we very much encourage families and supporters to attend orientation. There is a whole other subset of orientation. So oftentimes our program, students and family members will be together throughout the majority of the program. But family members, supporters, we do know that there are some specific questions that you may have that you want answered. So we will have a family / supporter orientation kind of concurrent sessions that will happen with students, because your students will be in small groups, and we want to make sure that you get some education as well. And that can include just learning how to transition your student, being a partner with the institution, learning the resources here, working with our Office of Parent and Family Programs here, who will also come and speak with you, and you can learn about their offerings, because we recognize that you are also going through your own transition, and we want to welcome you as a new Gamecock to the Gamecock community as well. So that is very much something that we encourage. If family members / supporters are able to attend, we really very much encourage them to attend, and we'd like to see you as well. We want to be able to engage with you and chat with you and get your questions answered while you're here in the program too.
Yes. Now, I want transition our conversation specifically in our freshman orientation program. It is an overnight program that our students do stay on campus for, and so I'm seeing a couple questions about this. And so one question that I'm seeing here is, what accommodations are available for students and families on campus, and do we need to get a hotel? Like, what accommodations should we be looking out for during our new student orientation experience?
Yeah, so like Noah said, the overnight stay for our freshman students is a requirement between day 1 and day 2 of orientation. Now, that is the only night that is required to stay overnight. And the reason being, the program lasts very late into the evening. We have a lot of fun stuff planned for them throughout the day, and it goes well into that evening. So we have them come back with us and stay in a residence hall with staff members on site, so we can ensure their security. It also gives them a really, really great opportunity to spend the night in a residence hall before they move in the fall. It gives them an opportunity to meet some fellow Gamecocks they're coming in with. So it's a very, very exciting thing that we get to do by having them stay in one of our residence halls throughout orientation. Now, for the nights before or the nights after orientation, a student is welcome to stay in the residence hall that they'll be staying in for orientation as well. It'd be the same room, same everything, but if they have a travel accommodation where they're coming in the night before or they're leaving the day after, there is an additional fee for that, but they are more than welcome to stay in the residence hall. Traditionally, it's between about $30 and $40, and the additional nights can be added during the registration for orientation. So once we open on Wednesday, you can add those nights in if you'd like. Conversely, though, if your student would like to stay off campus with you in a hotel, they're also welcome to do that the night before or the night after. We cannot accommodate the student not staying between day 1 and day 2. Unfortunately, that is a requirement that is only waived with very extreme extenuating circumstances, like a medical condition or a religious exemption. But those are few and far between, and we kind of field those as needed. For a general answer, though, all students are required, freshmen, to stay between day 1 and day 2. And for transfer students, we do not offer overnight accommodation housing.
Perfect. Another question that I have that I see right in hand with this overnight stay is, does our office provide bedding for students who are staying overnight?
Yeah, so we actually encourage students, and it will be in your pre-arrival email for students about a week or so, or a couple days before you actually attend your session. Just a reminder to let you know that you need to provide your own bedding if you're staying on campus. We do have an option for you to rent bedding through Conference and Guest Services through University Housing here. But that does accrue an additional fee. So very much encourage you, if you are able to bring your own bedding to that. And we've seen students bring a variety of things. Some students are comfortable with a sleeping bag because you're staying there. Some folks bring just like a sheet and a blanket. So you're able to control the weather in the space. Though the weather in Columbia outside we cannot control, you can control that in your room. So please know you can be comfortable in there. But yes, you should bring your bedding to your orientation. If you're unable to, whether you're flying or it's a long distance or you'd rather just not carry it, we do have an option for students to be able to rent bedding and an additional cost for them.
Perfect. I'm going to transition our conversation now. I'm seeing many different questions refer to different costs and fees. And so one of the first questions that I'm seeing here, we're saying this word fee, but is this fee that we're talking about for new student orientation? Is it our admissions deposit? What fees are we specifically mentioning here on this webinar?
Yeah, absolutely. So the fees that we're really discussing for the purposes of orientation are orientation registration fees. So any kind of incurred costs like an overnight stay, an additional overnight stay, as well as just the general orientation fee, which I'll list out what those fees are and what exactly they are in just a second. When it comes to the enrollment deposit fee, I did see an earlier question about whether or not that does need to be paid before registration. The enrollment deposit is applicable to freshmen only. Transfers do not pay an enrollment deposit, but for our freshmen, that will need to be paid before they complete their orientation. That will generate their student profile, and that does typically take between 2 and 3 business days for that to be processed. So that's a caveat to keep in mind if that has not been paid yet. If you go ahead and do that today, within 2 to 3 business days, it should be available within the registration system and the student can start their registration process. That being said, if it takes a little longer than that, it may go past the Wednesday deadline, but we can go from there. The fees themselves that we're referring to cover the orientation experience itself. So everything that you'll need for orientation is covered in that fee, including meals that are provided during orientation, any kind of publications that we distribute, any of our materials that we give out. We give out a gym bag to our students that have a lot of good stuff in it, for example. So everything for the orientation is covered in that fee. Now for our incoming freshmen, that is set at $250 per student. And for our transfer students, that is $130. For any additional guest you want to add on to that registration, for a freshman, that is $115. And for a transfer, that is $50. So for example, if you were a freshman student coming in and you wanted to bring along one supporter or family member with you, that would be $250 for the student and $115 for the supporter. So that combined, I think it comes out to $365 or so, would combine the two of them, and that would cover. Now, if you add any kind of overnight accommodation or additional overnight accommodations, it would go up a little bit. But those are the fees that we're really mentioning for the purposes of this webinar.
Yeah. Now, say on March 20th at noon, I register for my orientation session, I put in one family member, I pay all the things, I'm good to go, and then later on I decide, oh, I want to add another family member. Am I able to go back into my reservation and add that family member after I've completed it and submitted it and paid all those things?
Yes, so you can add a family member or supporter to the orientation at any time. It doesn't need to be done right when you do that. Additionally, if you need to edit the supporter, so say you've submitted for your mother to come along with you, you get closer to orientation, actually she can't get off work and my father's going to come along anyway. You can go in and you can just edit the names and switch it over to the father. You can add a guest up to 3 at any point in time. You can bring more than 3 guests if you'd like to, as long as there is family and guest availability in our registration system. If it's over 3, you just need to contact us manually, and then we can help you over the phone to add more than 3. But up to 3, you can add at any time. The payment can be submitted right afterward, and it doesn't need to be done with the student. So reiterate a point that we had earlier on. If you're not sure if a parent or guest is going to be coming with you, but you want to complete your registration, do go ahead and complete your registration anyway. The family and guest member, the supporter, can be added much later on if you need to. But we want to make sure that if you have, specifically if you have a certain date in mind, that you go ahead and finish the registration as the student, and we can add that family and guest member later on if need be.
Perfect. Thank you, Flowers. My next question, so I'm going to transition. I'm seeing a lot of questions about what does the schedule of an orientation session look like? And so, Jared, I was hoping you can provide us an overview of both what the freshman orientation schedule looks like, as well as that transfer orientation as well.
For sure. So for freshman orientation, I'll specifically talk about the student freshman orientation, not to get too many confused schedules in there. But for our students, so you will arrive here for check-in. Check-in is going to start pretty close to about a 7:30 a.m. time frame. So you will check in both into the residence hall that you'll be staying in for that night, as well as into actual orientation. You'll be greeted by our wonderful orientation leaders who are very excited to see you, as well as the rest of the Office of New Student Orientation staff. From there, you'll move on to breakfast. So we will have a breakfast option for you all. And then we will have shuttles that will take you over to where our welcome or opening session will take place. During that time, you will hear from a variety of campus partners, as well as receive your official welcome to the University of South Carolina. And hear from, again, some campus partners. You'll hear from our orientation leaders and hear about some history and tradition pieces. And then we'll get you over into your first small group with your orientation leader. You will be pre-assigned an orientation leader. You will go off with them. They will chat with you, get to know the people in your group, as well as your orientation leader. Well, if you're not in small group, you'll be at lunch, and then we'll rotate. So half will go to lunch, half will go to small group. During that time, you'll be back here on campus. From there, you'll go over to what we call your academic college visit. So you will go meet with your academic college to hear about big, large picture conversations about your college. So learn a little bit more about where you'll be spending the next 4 to 5 years and learning from. After that, you will come back to where one of our main spaces, the Russell House, where we will do what we call breakout sessions. So we have some specified breakout sessions where you'll hear from some wonderful campus partners. That can include parking and transportation, student health services, just getting involved in general as a student. Those are some of the options you'll have there. After that, you will go into your second small group. While you're in that small group, this is really building upon those connections you made in the first one, but you're starting to get some more information. After that small group, you'll go to dinner. You will have dinner with your family members. So we'll bring folks back together. You'll have dinner with your family members. After dinner, students will go into a special program called Readers Theater, where you will hear from the orientation leaders in a skit-based program about what it means to be a Gamecock. What does it mean to be a part of the Gamecock community? And really, how do you find right where you belong, which is our office's motto here on campus. After that, we'll move into some late night programming. It's called Gamecocks After Dark, which is a collaboration with some wonderful campus partners, just for students to have a good time, hang out, play some games, get to know some other folks. And then during that time, we'll transition to take you back to the residence hall so you can get some rest for the next day. That's the end of day one. Into day two. Day two, we will get up. We'll get back here onto campus and be on campus for a quick grab-and-go breakfast for students before you go into your final small group for your orientation session. In that small group, we're going to talk about advising, registering for classes, because you'll be doing that later in the day. You will then go back into another opening session, hear from some other campus partners, really to wrap up that experience. From there, you'll come back. We will split our group in half. Half will go to the resource fair, where, of course, is a fair full of resources for you and your family members about ways to get involved with campus. And then some other off-campus partners that come and join us as well that are walking distance from campus that like to talk to our students and families. After the resource fair and lunch, students, you will then head off to academic advising. After academic advising, you will come back, complete your orientation survey, your exit survey, and then you are off to go. So that is the freshman orientation schedule. It is 2 days, so that was a lot of information. But into our transfer sessions are 1 day programs, so it occurs just during 1 day. You will check in you will check in the morning on your session. We will check you in. We will do majority of our programming here in the Russell House, which is our student union here on campus. You'll check into the program. You will also get a breakfast. You will also get that opening welcome session and hearing from campus partners. You will then go into a small group session with your orientation leader. From there, we will head off into your academic college visit. So you get to go learn about your college, the overall pieces. From there, we will come back, do resource fair and lunch rotation. So you get to engage in the resource fair as well. And then we will, after resource fair and lunch, we will send you off to your advising locations. You will get to go to advising, begin building your schedule, select the schedule you will have currently, and then you will be free to go after you complete the survey. We are an assessment-driven program, so it's very important that all participants in orientation do complete that assessment. I talked a lot, friends, but I hope you got all the information about those 2 schedules for you.
And I will say this too, at the end of this webinar, I will be putting a QR code up for everybody to scan that has our registration guide, and it does have that breakdown as well. So Jared did a great job breaking that down, but we will also give it to you in writing as well, so you can kind of have an idea of what to expect this summer. One question that I see pouring in a lot, we talked about the costs and the fees that are associated with attending orientation, but I was wondering if we can get a general overview, or what are the costs associated with new student orientation, and then what do those costs cover again? So just a quick overview of those costs.
Yeah, so our fees vary between freshman and transfer. So for our incoming freshman students, the student fee is $250 per student. And then for every additional supporter, family member, or guest added onto that registration, it's $115 per person. So what does that cover? That covers the meals provided during orientation. It covers our facility rental fees. It covers any publications or any kind of like materials given out during orientation. We give out a couple different swag items. We give out a bunch of different informational items. It covers those fees. It covers our staffing costs and any kind of other auxiliary costs associated with putting on the orientation program. Now, for our transfer students, it is a little bit lower since that is a 1-day program as opposed to a 2-day program for our freshmen. And that is $115 per transfer student. And for every supporter added onto that registration, it is $50. So that is what the fees cover similar amounts. That's why it's a lower fee, because we provide less meals during the 1-day program versus the 2-day program, so on and so forth. So those are the fees. Those are what they cost generally. All that money does go back to the student and back to the supporter that they bring along with them, just in various different, mediums.
Awesome. One question that I'm seeing here, and really important one to answer, is new student orientation mandatory for incoming students to the university?
Yes, so new student orientation is a requirement for all students who wish to begin classes in their upcoming semester. It is a requirement regardless for all students, transfer and freshmen, as well as our readmit students. There is a little stipulation with our readmitted students. If they haven't attended orientation within the last 2 years, they're required to come back. If they have attended within the last 2 years, they're not required. But all of those students are required to come back to orientation. Athletes, honor students, all those kinds of good stuff are required. Now, we don't offer new student orientation virtually. New student orientation is offered only in person. The reason being is because it's just best practice, right? So we want to ensure, and it is our belief as an office, that students feel prepared for their first semester, that they are aware of all of the resources available to them on campus for their success, that they are familiar with campus itself, that they're familiar with what we can do for them, what is offered to them, and what is available. And not to mention the fact that the admission or the advising process is a lot easier when done in person, when you can kind of have a face-to-face conversation with an advisor and an orientation leader whom can help out with the registration process. So it is our best belief as an office that in-person orientation is far more conducive to the success of our incoming students rather than a virtual program. Obviously, that does require some travel accommodations be made. And for that, we are appreciative. But regardless, whenever students do come to orientation, they are always excited when they leave. They're ramped up for their first semester, and they're aware of everything on campus that is available to them in their first semester to ensure their success as well.
All right, I'm now going to transition our conversation to the special populations that we serve. And so I'm seeing a question here, a very important conversation for us to have. If a session, when we're looking at orientation dates, if a session says that it's for honor students and honor students are being asked to register for this session, or student athletes are being asked to register for this session, does that mean that only honor students can attend that session, or is that session available for other student populations as well?
Yeah, so when you see that, it's specifically because that programming is happening for those students. But any student can register for those sessions, no matter if you were honors, if you're a student athlete. But we offer specialized or specific sessions to them because that is when their program is able to host them and have them to meet. We didn't want them to be spread out too much. We wanted them, for our honor students or student athletes or any other population or program, to be able to have specified ones so that they get to meet them, a good community or partner or group of people from that population as well. But any incoming student can attend any of our sessions as long as it is seen in your registration and it is available for you and your major/college. You can attend the session. So if it's on your registration, you can attend that session.
Now, I am seeing here just a couple of questions about the specific populations that we do serve and what those programs might look like. And so I have a couple of questions about student athletes and what that program may look like over the summer, as well as for our capstone scholar students and what that program might look like. So what is the customization? How are those experiences different when they attend that session?
Yeah. So I kind of talked about this a little bit with our honors program. It's kind of similar. For our capstone students, when you are attending orientation, you will attend orientation as a general freshman student. But on day 2, you will have a capstone scholars program meeting. And that will take place on day 2 during that resource fair lunchtime. We want to make sure you get to experience the resource fair and lunch, but there is a small, about 45-minute meeting that you will meet with the Capstone Scholars Program, both you and your family members, to learn a little bit more about the program. What does it mean? How is it applied to you, and how will that work during your experience here at USC? For student athletes, same thing. It's on day 2. Day 2, what will happen for you all is that you all will attend the resource fair and then you will go grab your lunch. We will have to-go boxes for our student athletes and their family members to grab food from Gamecock Park, which is one of our dining locations here in the student union. You will grab that food and take it back to a specialized room, to a specific room, where you will meet with the student athlete support team. And y'all have lunch together, and y'all will talk about what it means to be a student athlete during that meeting. So during a lot of those specialized programs or special populations, just have special meetings that they will have either on the morning of day 1 or during a lunchtime area on day 2.
Many of our students and family members, supporters of those students who are on the call right now might be interested in joining fraternity and sorority life. And so I have a question here that asks, is it wise to align our new student orientation attendance with the sorority rush and move-in process?
To be honest with you, I actually would attend orientation before then. I think there's a lot of potential stress that lives with you're trying to get moved into the residence hall and you're preparing for sorority recruitment, and you're also trying to attend orientation. So if you are able to, we recommend that you attend orientation before that time. If it doesn't work out that way and you must attend and it works out easier for you all, that is absolutely an option. But if you are able to, we very much recommend that you attend orientation beforehand, just so that you are not trying to mix up a move-in time and when you need to be somewhere for a shorter recruitment, while also completing the requirement of orientation.
Now I have some questions about specifically the registration software and what going through that registration process may look like. A couple questions about the email. Do they need to use their email that's associated with the University of South Carolina that they were given after they were admitted, or are they able to use their personal emails when registering for new student orientation?
Yeah, so for registration purposes, basically whatever email you're going to be getting emails to, that you're going to be checking frequently, regularly, and throughout the summer. Traditionally speaking, though, students will want to use their USC email account, because that's one that they're going to start using when they're at USC. It's the one that they're going to be emailing with their professors with, and the one that they're going to want to start using and checking frequently. So we do urge you to use your student account if that has been accessed or if that's being used. If not, whatever email you are going to be checking and that your student is going to be reading emails and getting them to. Basically, if they're going to be seeing the email, that's the one that you're going to want to put down. It's going to ask you for 2 emails. It's going to ask you for a primary and a secondary. Feel free to put your USC email account and then your personal if you'd like to do it that way, or you can flip-flop those. So it is up to you. Just again, whatever email you're going to be looking at, whatever email your student is going to be reading, whatever email your student is consistently going to be checking is the one you're going to want to use during registration.
Say that I have chosen my date for my orientation session. I know when I'm going over the summer, and then something comes up and I need to change my orientation date. First, is it possible for me to change my date? And 2, how would I go about that?
Yeah, so your student, or you, if you are the student, you are welcome to change your orientation date so long as there is availability in the date that you're trying to switch into. So after you've made your reservation, say you've reserved for session number 3, and you want to get into session number 7. You go in, and I'll walk you through where to go for that in just a second, but you go in and you notice that it's not there anymore for registration. Unfortunately, that does mean that the session has capped out and has reached maximum capacity either overall for your major, for a certain student population, or program that you're in. And after that, we're not going to be able to put you into that session. But say session 8 is available. You are welcome to switch yourself into session 8 at any time as long as it is available. Now, the way to do that, you go back through the registration portal the same way you initially made the reservation. So you'll go in through Self-Service Carolina, you'll hit admissions, you'll hit orientation services, and then on the date selection page, which this will make more sense when you have gone through the registration, but on the date selection page, you'll select that. Any and all available dates that have not reached capacity will appear there for you. You'll just select one, save and continue, and you'll now be switched into a new session. If you need our help with that, if you need us to walk you through, or if you need us to take a look at what is available, you are welcome to call us. The availability is not going to change, though, if you do contact us. Any available date that is on the date selection page is what is available to your student or to you. So yeah, that is how you change a session, but you are welcome to do so up until 2 days before a session in question. So say you are trying to switch into session number 3 and it is tomorrow, we're not going to be able to switch you in quite that easily. So as long as it is a little bit of time out, you are welcome to switch your orientation date at any time.
All right, Jared, I'm going to flip to you for my next question. I am seeing a couple of questions about the student experience staying on campus overnight, specifically where our students might be staying in that overnight. And so are we aware of where our students are going to be staying overnight during that freshman orientation program yet?
Yes, we are. We are very excited that we will be staying in Campus Village this summer for our students. So students will be staying in Campus Village this summer, which is our newest residential community here on campus, just completed for fall of 2023. So we're very excited for our students to be able to stay up there. And as Flowers mentioned, we do have some opportunities for our families and supporters to stay in a residence hall if they would like to, but we do have hotels available for close to campus. But students and family members who would like to opt in or pay for that will be staying in Campus Village. Again, we are very, very excited for this partnership with University Housing and for our students to get to see our newest community here on campus.
For many of our students, when they're attending their orientation session, they'll have their housing assignment for that upcoming year, where they'll know where they're staying in the residence hall. They might be excited to kind of see where they're staying. So I'm curious, will students have the opportunity to tour their residence hall during their new student orientation session this summer?
So that's a great question. So not all of our residence halls will be open this summer. So keep in mind, during the summer, this is a downtime for a lot of our programs or a lot of our offices here on campus. So University Housing is preparing and prepping for students to come. So there may be some minor construction things they're trying to do, some updates in buildings. So unfortunately, not all residence halls will be open for students to tour. But we are working with University Housing to try to find some locations so students are able to see a residence hall / families are able to see them. And then also working with, if you are part of a living learning community, the hope is that there will be some kind of programmatic element for you all to get to experience that as well. The students will be unable to see their specific residence hall, but they should be able to see at least one of them, not including the one they will be staying in over those 2 days.
Now I'm seeing a few questions going back to staying in Campus Village overnight, talking about roommates. And so will students have a roommate with them during new student orientation, and what does that process look like?
Great question. So yes, students will have a roommate unless when they are submitting their registration, they have an accommodation, they need to stay in a single room or in a single space. But yes, they will have a roommate, and those roommates are pre-assigned. So when students arrive, they'll check in with not just orientation, but with housing. They will pick up an access card to get into the space. And then that's when they will find out who they'll be staying with. It is an opportunity for students to be able to meet someone new and chat with them. The space we're staying in within Campus Village is what we call pod style. So students will, when you walk into a pod, you walk into a room, and within that pod or that suite kind of space, there are 2 rooms, and each room houses 2 students, and then they will share a bathroom. So only 4 students are sharing one bathroom. If it is easy or easier, I'd actually recommend you all go to the housing website. So se.edu/housing. Click on Campus Village, and students are staying in Campus Village 4. So if you want to see the layout of that space, or really any layout of the rooms of any campus residence hall, you can do that by going to the housing website, and it should be able to provide you with a layout of the room. But roommates are pre-assigned once they arrive, but you will be sharing a bathroom with 3 people.
All right. I'm seeing a few questions in our chat. We talked about how we have new student orientation programming for specific populations of students coming in this summer. And so there are a few questions about whether or not sessions for specific majors. So like, for instance, if students are music majors, should they attend one specific session, or are they kind of broken out through the summer?
Yeah, so a little bit of a layered answer for that. So basically, generally speaking, for various different majors in colleges, there are sections of the orientation program where the students and the supporters will branch off into their various academic colleges. Now, your student is divided into an academic college based on their major, and that varies obviously major to major. Majors like English will be in the College of Arts and Sciences. Middle level education will be in the College of Education. Now, there are college visits during the orientation session. Now, what that entails is going to physically the location of the academic college, hearing from their staff and faculty a little bit, getting to know a little bit more about the degree program, what is going to be expected of them within the degree program, a general overview of what the next 4 years is going to look like, all that kind of good stuff. So that'll happen regardless of what the major or program is. Now, if you're a member of a certain population, say capstone, there are specific informational sessions that are offered to those students to touch base with faculty and staff within those programs, get to know more about the program itself. So that is, population to population in terms of what is and is not offered. The registration capacities are also determined by major. So I've seen that question a couple times floated around, and just so everyone knows how our capacities do work, we do have an overall capacity for every session, and that is determined by basically fire code and how many people we can have. So as many people as we can have in a session, we are trying to get as many people put in there for registration. It is then sectored out by major and by college. So our advisors within each college will get back with us and say, I can only see XYZ number of students in a session. And that will become the capacity for that for each individual session. So our more popular majors have a little bit of a higher capacity limit, and our least popular majors have a lower capacity. And that's basically how we do our capacity numbers for orientation. And we're not able to ever circumvent the population maximums given to us by our advisors. So long story short, there are specific programs for specific majors given during orientation, as well as our different special populations and academic programs. And our capacities are determined by college as well.
Thank you. I have another question going back to the costs related to new student orientation. Is the new student orientation fee at all refundable? Like, say I have a family member that's registered for orientation, and then we find out that they're not able to come, and so now I'm removing them from my registration. Is it at all refundable?
Yes and no. So there is a caveat to that as well. So with the new student orientation fund, it can be refunded, but we must know outside of 2 weeks from the session in question. So for example, if the student is registered to attend on July 22nd and 23rd, we would have to know about a refund at least 2 weeks before that. So by midnight on Sunday, July 7th. Another caveat to that, all refunds and all fee refunds are subject to a $35 administrative fee. And we're not able to waive that at any point. So if we do approve, say you ask for a refund 3 weeks away from your session for $250, you would receive $215 back. So yeah, we do need to know 2 weeks prior, and it always has to be written in email form. Now, I want to take this opportunity now, though, since this is kind of relevant to it. We do have some various policies and procedures that are internal to our office that we ask all of our students and our supporters to abide by, including our refund policy. And if you're curious to read through our policies and what is required and what we're asking of students, they are housed on our website. And to find them, you'll go onto our website at sc.edu/orientation. You'll select how to register on the left-hand side and scroll down, and you'll see everything listed there. You'll see everything that we'll need in that email. So when you do email for a refund request outside of 2 weeks of your session, we need to know the student's first and last name, date of birth. All of that's listed on our website under our policies section. And again, all refunds are subject to $35 administrative fees.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that, Flowers. As we're starting to wrap up with just our last couple of questions, I think, Jared, I'll send this one to you. Why should our family members and supporters attend new student orientation this summer?
Great question. So I think there's a lot of reasons. One, we, like I said earlier, we want to welcome you to the Gamecock community as well. We want you to also get the pomp, the circumstance, the excitement, because, you know, your students coming here and they're very excited and we're excited for them, but we're also excited to have you. And we want you to feel excited and good about the decision your students making about coming to the University of South Carolina. During orientation for our families and supporters, you will be introduced to conversations around our academic policies, support resources, talking about financial aid, tuition, payments, student health. You get to ask questions of our current student, staff, and administrators. So As part of the parent-family experience, we have something called the Student Point of View Panel, and we will hear from our team leaders about their student experience. So getting firsthand experience and firsthand knowledge from current students about what it means to be here, things they wish they would have known, which they wish their families or supporters could have provided them. So that's really an awesome opportunity. I talked about the Office of Parent and Family Programs. I can't talk enough about them and the amazing resources that they're able to offer to you, but also just from our staff here within the Office of New Student Orientation and our knowledge around parent and families about your transition as well, and being able to chat with us and just to have someone to talk to those things about. And then getting to meet other families and supporters throughout the program. We do have some evening socials that take place after on day one that give you the opportunity to connect with not just here on campus, but some of our off-campus partnerships as well and opportunities there. But we also get excited to see you all in general. So if anything, just come see us. We're excited to see you. We're excited to chat with you. We're excited to learn from you and to learn with you about your student.
And just to add to what Jared said, we do have a lot of hotels that we partner with as an office that provide those accommodations to you. So definitely recommend checking out the Graduate Hotel, Home 2 Suites, Hilton Garden Inn, and Hotel Trundle, which through a partnership with us, they do offer 15% off that reservation when you use the code BYEKiddo. That's capital BYE KIDDO. Bye bye kiddo, and that's for Hotel Trundle. I'm going to ask one more question and then we'll transition to closing out. We're going to go back to the roommate conversation or students staying overnight during their freshman orientation session. What does that roommate match process look like, and what kind of interactions can students expect to experience with their roommate during their new student orientation session?
Yeah, great question. What I do understand of the process, and the process may change year to year, but what I know from past and historically, oftentimes they're going to pair students that maybe have the same major or maybe from the same hometown, the same state, based on the information that they share, or it could just be random. But I do believe they are thinking about a student's major, their hometown, where they're coming from, some interests they may have shared, so that they have someone to conversate with and chat with. Orientation can be a very long day and there's a lot of information. So we want to make sure that your students, when they are staying on campus, are staying with someone that kind of gets them, that understands their experience, not just as a new student, but also maybe that's a sociology major or someone that's an engineering major, so that they can conversate and chat with. But really what they can expect is knowing that you may not see your roommate the entire time, or maybe in different small groups, but you all will share a room, you will all share space together, and share that pod or that kind of suite, we call it pod style, with three other individuals. But if you're maybe not, maybe you and your roommate at the time, maybe they're going to go to bed a little bit earlier and you're kind of wanting to stay up and chat with folks. There are lounge spaces in the residence hall. It's one of the benefits of having students stay on campus during the summer, during their session, is for them to get a chance to really experience a residence hall. So there will be there are other students that they can chat with and conversate with. They can stay in our study lounge up into a certain point because we do want them to go get some rest before the next day.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Jared. And thank you, Jared and Flowers, for your time today and answering these questions, as well as Jen and Allison, who've been answering questions backstage. Just to give you a quick recap of the things that we covered today, I am presenting this. Yes. Yep. All right. So here's a quick recap. Registration opens March 20th at noon Eastern Time and closes May 10th. So definitely encourage you to register as soon as possible in order for you to be able to get your preferred date. You can register through Self-Service Carolina, which can be accessed by going to my.sc.edu. And as a reminder, it is the student that is going through this process for the registering for orientation, and the student, as they're navigating that process, can add the family members and the supporters. Be sure to check your emails for frequent updates from our office, as well as other offices across campus, because they are going to be giving you lots of great information, but also important information information to know before going and attending your orientation session this summer. As well as reach out to our office with any questions you may have. Hopefully we covered a lot of the answers to your questions today, but we recognize that there may have been some questions that we may have not been able to answer in this short time frame, and our office is here to answer your questions and to support you as you're navigating this transition to the University of South Carolina. Last slide, we have our registration guide. Definitely recommend scanning this QR code so you can get lots of great information for things that we've covered. And so I'll leave this up real quick. This has the schedule and lots of other information about our orientation sessions. And then for our last slide, here's some contact information for us and the ways that you can get in contact with us. Thank you all so much for joining us. We are so excited to welcome you to the Gamecock community. Be sure to check out our freshman and transfer webinars coming up in April to learn more about your orientation session and how to prepare. Have a great one, everyone, and go Gamecocks.